So our next speaker is Veronika Sušová Salminen. She's a comparative historian and political analyst, specializing in the modern history and politics of Central and Eastern Europe and Russia, with a methodological focus on world systems analysis, the dependency school, also with some influences from post-colonial critique. She graduated from Charles University in Prague with an MA in General and Comparative History and a Ph.D. in Anthropology. So Veronika, you are definitely going to bring a really interesting perspective on this, speaking as you do from Finland, but also specializing in the region that we are focusing on. So please go ahead.
Yes, good evening or afternoon or morning to everybody, and thank you for having me. In my presentation, I am going to specifically focus on Czechia because I am Czech, and I would like to put some more details about the Czech situation. Anna Maria was having great introduction, so I can skip a lot of things about Czech dependent market economy, because all these characteristics which have been said are valid for the Czech Republic. Nevertheless, I prepared a small presentation which I will going to share with you. Tell me if you see, and if you see the changes. That's the important thing. You see the changes. Okay, great. So I would like to focus shortly about the first about socioeconomic situation in the Czech Republic, and then on the political situation in the Czech Republic, because these two things are related. And unfortunately, the war in Ukraine is having not only socioeconomic results or consequences for the Czech Republic, but also political one. So in the socioeconomic situation, current time, of course, we have post-pandemic situation, which is still valid. However, within the next development, already in autumn 2021, so before the war started, in Czechia started the energy crisis. Energy crisis started with the bankruptcy of several providers of gas because of high prices. And this resulted in huge social problems for many people who were suddenly left out of the supplier, and suddenly they had to pay incredible amount of money for getting the new suppliers in prepayments. So the energy crisis is actually not exactly connected with the war, but the war make it worse. Because as we know, the Czechia is also dependent or was dependent on the Russian gas. This everything was here. You can see for the comparison only what happened with the energy prices. I would like to add that Czechia was until recently one of the biggest exporters of electrical energy. We were exporting mostly energy to Germany, of course. And recent months, you could see that the prices of the electric energy were the red spot on the. You can see that they were really growing quickly. We have one of the biggest prices, absolutely highest prices in V4 group, and one of the highest in the European Union. And you can see that the rise of the energy prices in general was very sudden, started basically in the end of the 2021 in the second part of the year. And during the next months, the growth was really substantial. I call this already shock. This is the shock therapy which is going on in the Czech Republic at the moment. This is, of course, connected with the inflation. Inflation, of course, started already before, as we know, as one of the results of the pandemic. But however, the inflation started to grow substantially in the Czech Republic. One of the reasons is that our government, I will speak about our government very soon, a new government was unwilling to do whatever regulatory steps to tackle the prices of energies and to fight against inflation. They basically, they are all neoliberals, and they believe that if you let the things flow, it will of course somehow solve itself. So the result was for a while highest inflation, or one of the highest inflation in the European Union. You can see also that the rise of the food, for example, is substantial in the Czech Republic if you compare it with 2015. And you can fairly say that the impact of war, economic impact of war in Czechia are much more worse than was global financial crisis. Then, of course, with inflation, high prices, you have the decline of real wages. You can see the data which are coming from the Czech Statistic Office, and you can see that since the 2021, you can see it here, the real wages fall nearly 10%. Here, I would like to say that this number is very unprecedented for the Czech economy. Last time such situation, such deep loss was during the so-called transformational recession in the early 1990s. So this is next shock, because suddenly you have such huge decline of real incomes. Even if the wages, as you can see, nominally are growing, still the people are having less and less money, and they have to pay bigger and bigger bills for basic things, such as food, such as energy. You can also see on the other side, spotřeba is consumption. This is showing you only that the consumption is already very severely influenced by the situation. As you know, consumption in general is a very important engine of the economies, current economies. So in this sense, you can see that Czech consumption is falling down. This is causing already economic stagnation. At the moment, Czech Republic had last gross domestic product minus 0.4. So we can sum up that the socioeconomic impacts are quite severe, in a way even unprecedented. If you see, for example, the real wages fall, which is really high. On the other hand, you have situation which is the solution. The government, which is the government of conservatives, has two ways of combining things. First of all, they came with the idea that the problem of Czech economy and how to solve it is, of course, reform, and that it is needed, first of all, to do consolidation of budget. They don't have any specific ideas. Basically, the politicians which we have now in government all are living still in 1990s. So basically their horizon of thinking about economy, about things is 1990s, austerity, privatization, market solves everything, and so on. State must be small and minimal, and so on. So they are combining two things. As you can see, they are coming a huge cuts of the budget. In this situation, which I was describing you, where middle class, not yet, but the weakest middle class is already falling down, their idea is to start to cut more in order to tackle the deficit. So you can see that they are trying to basically cut all possible ways. And before, as you know, neoliberals were usually using this way of reform public finances and the role of state in economy by opening the way for the private entrepreneurs and private firms to start to subcontract and basically create the space for rent seeking. As you know, now the rent seeking is not priority anymore. And you can see that they go really the classical neoliberal scenario. We cut the money of state, we will do the savings. They came with evergreen called pension reform, which is promising to people to go to pension maybe even in 68 age. So never for many people. They are promising tax reforms, which is going to put a higher tax on employees, so direct taxes on firms also slightly, 19%, gonna be 21. And of course, VAT, which, as you know, is a very one of the biggest income of the modern states, and also something which is influencing a lot of normal people and poor people specifically. And finally, healthcare reform, which will again put down the situations, the way how the care is provided for people. So you can see that this is the classical neoliberal scenario, only that the money which will be saved are going to be invested in weapons. The current government says that Czechia is under the threat. Russia wants to occupy Czech Republic, and it is Ukraine is saving us against that, and it is needed to modernize the Czech army, which is professional army having some 20,000 people now. As you know, a lot of Czech equipment was sent to Ukraine already, and now the government is planning to do these investments. I will not say all this, what type of, you can see that it's a lot of money. I put there how much is Corona euro. It's a lot of money, which we don't have, I think, which will be taken from the people and put to machines which should kill people. And I would like to add that Czech Republic or Czechoslovakia used to be one of the biggest producers of weaponry in the past, until 1990s. Still, we have some industry left, but this will be not the way how the economy, will be revitalized, that we will make the guns, because majority of these weapons are American, Swedish, Israeli, UK, and so on. So this is the solution of the crisis and solution for the Czech economy. Finally, the political situation, and here I don't have very good news, or I think there is really huge problem becoming, because what we saw in Poland and Hungary before, it means that the one political force was trying to get the full control over the political system. This is happening now under the slogan, "We are at war." Because our Prime Minister, Petr Fiala, openly says we are at war, even it's not true. Czech Republic is definitely not at war. And they are really trying to establish the unprecedented institutional hegemony, should basically be a next level of, opposition blockage. They want to blockage all opposition now under within the war in Ukraine. Fix the neoliberal silence. It means you can see that they are still continuing with the neoliberal policies, and actively pursue the neo-Atlantist, I would say, escalating policy, which is fully supporting USA and USA strategy against Russia and China. There is absolutely, there can't be even any doubts. They call it the return to President Havel foreign policy, which is, of course, huge propaganda. It's not very true. At the moment, besides the buying of American weaponry, the government already negotiated security agreement with the United States, which will open the way that the United States military will have, and now they don't call it bases, they call it installments or something like this, because bases, we remember still Soviet bases, and it's very negative connotation, which will basically limit the Czech sovereignty in this sense even more, because these US forces will be outside of Czech laws. They will be established there. They will have own state basically within, as usually is. The attitudes of the leading politicians is openly pro-war now. Really, it seems that in rhetoric, at least, they don't have any breaks. They would really go to fight Russia if they could. And you have to realize that this anti-Russian position, this is a very important narrative for the new regime, which was established in the early 1990s. It is connected with the occupation of Czechoslovakia by Warsaw Pact, leading by Soviet Union, which is having, there is a huge mythology around it. And we have to realize that really 1968, meaning the August 1968, not Prague Spring, of course. Nobody wants to speak about Prague Spring. That's no. But the occupation itself, it's really boosting the anti-Russian sentiments all last 30 years. So they are using this mythology now to strengthen it and to confirm it, of course. And anybody who basically is trying to criticize it or say, come on, like, stop with, like, we are 10 million nation and we are not interested in the Third World War because we would not survive it ever, are now called as disinformators, fifth colony, or traitors. This is official language which is normally used in the media. I have to say that, unfortunately, also in academic freedoms are severely limited at the moment. I can give you then a few examples of people who lost jobs for their opinions, academic opinions. expert opinions, not personal, not civic opinions. So there is a really situation of growing repression. That's why I call it neo-normalization, because if you don't know the history of Czechoslovakia, after 1968 came so-called normalization period, and this was the period of a huge repression, political repression, and not like Stalinist, of course, but a lot of people lost jobs. A lot of people had to, leave the places. There was a lot of expulsion from the Communist Party of Czechoslovakia, and it was a very dark period for intellectuals, for political culture, political system in general. So I call it neo-normalization. It's not the same. It's much more liquid form, but it is very similar. And just a few conclusions. By the way, the lady which I put there, this is Czech Minister of Defense, the lady who loves guns. So this is her. So, by the way, government also is trying to liberalize the ownership of guns in the Czech Republic. So militarization goes also in this direction. So unfortunately, the resilience of neoliberalism in the Czech Republic is now turning into the specific alliance of neoliberalism and militarization and militarism, which is also targeting the society. You can see the new austerity measures, which are now called reform, of course, and their main purpose is a new redistribution of the wealth of the society, which means that money and resources will go for military spending. Ideological war started against any dissent, and really they don't see any nuances. They don't want to listen any differences. You just criticize these days government, and you are pro-Putin. You are Putin agent, and you should be silenced because you are traitor, and this is what is going on. Unfortunately, we have also the next problem. Besides the fact that media are owned by private, entrepreneurs which are connected with government, we don't have any real media freedom. The problem is that we have also very weak and fragmented left at the moment, because in 2021, Social Democratic Party as well as Communist Party of Czechia, they were both were basically they were not voted again back to parliament. So we have a weak left, and we have also like a weak political opposition, because political opposition in the parliamentary level was left for two types of relatively populist politician. It means billionaire Andrej Babiš, who is like Czech version of Trump, but specific, not same, but he is also such rich man who went to politics because he didn't anymore wanted to pay politicians himself. And then a nationalistic oriented party, so-called party of direct democracy, which is led by Tomio Okamura. Interestingly, he's half Japanese, but he's Czech nationalist. And the sad story is that the war logic, really the thing that killing of people is normal, dehumanization, talk about traitors, closing the discussion, escalation is seen as a solution. Peace is the wrong word. You cannot say peace, because peace means you want next Munich agreement and you don't want to help Ukraine. This is already on motion. So the situation is pretty bad, and the war is really at the moment creating a very sad and bad conditions for the Czech political system and Czech democracy, if I can call it still like this. Thank you very much.
I'm Michael Hudson. I'm appearing here for the International Manifesto Group. If you like this video and ones like it, please subscribe. For more information, go to the address on the screen.